Alright, one more week before the new Ghostbusters comes out, and one more movie left to review, so let's do this. Ghostbusters 2 once again stars everyone from the first movie: Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ramis, Sigourney Weaver, Ernie Hudson, Rick Moranis, and Annie Potts, and is once again directed by Ivan Reitman. It takes place 5 years after the first Ghostbusters and is made 5 years after it in 1989. And we learn that the Ghostbusters have been disbanded. They've gone their separate ways. Peter Venkman, once again played by Bill Murray, hosts his own talk show. Egon is back teaching at a university, and both Ray and Winston are attending kids' parties dressed as the Ghostbusters. So things are just not looking too good. Suddenly, strange phenomena start happening once again that involves a river of slime that feeds off people's negative emotions, and it all leads into this painting that wants to come to life and pretty much destroy the world. So it kind of has the same vibe as the first Ghostbusters, and yeah, that's pretty much what everyone has said about this movie in particular. Now, we all know Ghostbusters. I absolutely love it. It's my favorite comedy of all time. One of the best comedies ever made. One of the most quotable movies in existence. You can't go wrong with it. So, how on earth do you follow up something as phenomenal as Ghostbusters? Sadly, you don't follow Ghostbusters up with anything. Ghostbusters 2 was that movie that I purposely avoided because everyone said how bad it is, and that they basically just copy and pasted the script for the original Ghostbusters and just changed a few things here and there. So the first time I saw Ghostbusters 2 was at the New Beverly Theater here in LA, because it was playing as a double feature with the original Ghostbusters, and I went into it with bottom of the barrel expectations because of what everyone has said, and when I saw it, I was like, that wasn't too bad. I mean, not great, but it's not as horrible as people make it out to be. And then time went on. I just didn't bother to watch it again until I had to for this review. And really, now that I'm much older, it seriously does not hold up. It is a dull movie. And the main problem is because it is literally copy and paste of the first Ghostbusters movie. The same scenario seemed to happen again. The characters are still good. If there's a few positives I can point out before I get into the negatives, is that the dynamic between Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson is still very good, and I'm actually glad to see Winston in the movie a little more. And there are a few select funny moments here and there, and even though you watch this movie and go, man, Bill Murray just really didn't want to be here, he at the very least tries, and that is somewhat professional. And I also do like how the movie opens, with the Ghostbusters disbanded, they're going on their separate ways, just, you get the idea that things didn't work out too well, and I don't blame them when New York almost got destroyed. But whatever the case, I still really enjoyed that opening, and there are a few good moments here and there. Probably the funniest part for me is when the Ghostbusters first discover the River of Slime, and they have to do all these Brooklyn accents, real hardcore asshole Brooklyn accents. And hearing Egon trying to do it is actually really funny also, because knowing Egon, he's very strict and directly to the point and scientific, so not as, goofy as the other guys, but still funny in his own way. But aside from those moments, yeah, this just, it's not terrible. It's not god awful, you want to poke your eyes out with a stick. It's just really bland. It goes through the same motions as the first Ghostbusters and doesn't do it nearly half as well. Right down to the point where Dana, played again by Sigourney Weaver, has another Lewis-type equivalent, stalking her around, which is basically her boss. But this Lewis 2.0, as I'm gonna call him, is not really funny at all. He's downright irritating. There's nothing lovable about this guy. With Lewis in the first movie, yeah, he was a dweeb and a loser, but there were points where you felt sorry for him. This guy is downright creepy. He is just a step away from sniffing Dana's hair when she's not looking. It's that level of creepiness. And then also they just force characters in this movie. The actual Lewis, Rick Moranis, really has no reason to be in this movie. He easily could have been cut out, and it wouldn't have affected the movie at all. If anything, it may have made it a little better. Then you also have Walter Peck 2.0, which Walter Peck is a character I forgot to mention in the first Ghostbusters review. Basically, he's this asshole guy from the Environmental Protection Agency who wanted to shut down the Ghostbusters, but he's just doing his job. Sure, he was a colossal dickless douchebag, and it was common practice in the 80s to paint the EPA as villains, but he was doing his job, and the Ghostbusters just wouldn't comply. We hate Walter Peck. He's one of those movie characters that you just love to hate, but in the end, he was right. The guy who's supposed to be Walter Peck 2.0, who works for the mayor, really is just an asshole for no reason at all. He starts out with hating the Ghostbusters for no real established reason, and he just kind of disappears throughout the movie and does something really dickish to the Ghostbusters that just makes you go, you're just doing this out of pure hate. You really have no right reason, because at least Walter Peck was doing his job. This guy just hated the Ghostbusters for no reason. Now, getting into the comedy, the movie is nowhere near as quotable as the first one. Like, the only thing I can think of is in the courthouse scene, when the ghosts break free from the slime, and Lewis tells the judge that the Ghostbusters could be exposing themselves for sublegal matters, and Peter Venkman just comes up and says, "And you don't want us exposing ourselves." And that part made me laugh, but it's not as quotable as the first movie. The jokes just don't hit. The ghost effects actually look ugly and cheap. Slimer in the first Ghostbusters was really cool and creepy. This one, yeah, is creepy, but not for the right reasons. It's just an ugly and cheap looking effect. And then I'll say 3 more things that irritated me about this movie, and they're very quick. A, I hate that they used the Ghostbusters 2 logo on their sign and on their uniforms, rather than just the regular Ghostbusters logo. I don't understand why at the beginning of the movie, Ray and Winston know the Ghostbusters song in a Ghostbusters movie. And then lastly, the world did not end on Valentine's Day 2016. Screw that! Okay, you know what? In all seriousness, when I heard that line, I actually laughed hard. That was my 3rd laugh throughout the movie. But outside of that, Ghostbusters 2, the best way I can describe it is like Cars 2, where as a movie in itself, it's not terrible, but given that it had to follow up my absolute favorite comedy of all time, I can totally see why the movie is considered terrible to a lot of people. The jokes don't hit most of the time, some of the characters feel forced, the ghost effects look cheap and ugly, and it feels like it goes for too long. There was a point in this movie where I was actually nodding off, and I just didn't want to. So, again, I don't downright hate Ghostbusters 2, probably because when I first saw it, I had such low expectations that I wasn't as disappointed as everyone else was. So I'm going to say watch at your own risk. There are a few select moments that are really enjoyable, and the dynamic between the Ghostbusters is still good. But again, it's nowhere near as good as the first Ghostbusters, so that's why I say just watch at your own risk. So there have always been talks about a Ghostbusters 3, and it just never happened. Oh, wait, you know what? I take that back. It did happen. We did get a Ghostbusters 3 with the original cast in the form of a video game, Ghostbusters the video game for the Xbox 360. Maybe I'll do it as a Let's Play one day. But yeah, this is our Ghostbusters 3. For the new Ghostbusters movie coming out, again, I'm hoping for the best. I want to be optimistic, but I just don't have that many high hopes for it. I'm hoping for the best. So, we'll see what happens. And that's my review for Ghostbusters 2. Next week, I'm going to be taking a small break from retro reviews, just for the week. But 2 weeks from now, I'll be starting up my retro review series about The Boy Who Lived. And you know who I'm talking about. So, until then, I hope you enjoyed this review. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought of Ghostbusters 2. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you, there's only one.